Hey, what's up, monsters? And welcome to a special edition of The Deep Dish, of course. This morning, we are going to be joined by singer-songwriter MXMTOON. So without further ado, let's invite her into the show. Hello.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm really glad to be able to catch up with you because I was able to listen to your latest album, Liminal Space, and it really reminds me of like I feel like I would be driving like on a road trip listening to this song. So like, it's just really a lot of, like it's just really like, nice to listen to. It's really
Mhm.
nice to listen to. And so, for the monsters who aren't aware, and for the duration of this, interview also, I will be referring to MXMToon as Maya, so that it's a little bit easier
Just a tiny bit.
in that
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, yeah. Tell me, Maya, like, what led you to start making music?
I honestly kind of did it on accident. I've been playing music my whole entire life. I started learning the violin when I was 6 years old, but learning how to write music was something I found when I was 13, and I started posting the songs I was writing online and didn't
Mhm.
expect anyone to listen to anything that I was making. I think I got incredibly lucky and people started doing that, but I did fall into it a little bit, and I've been really lucky to stay and so thankful that I've been able to write music ever since.
Yeah. I actually did read somewhere, that apparently you had, like, early beginnings in music. You would take, like, violin lessons, and you would try playing, like, cello and trumpet as well. So, there was some musical background there until, of course, like, there was an audition for a school rock band that you were
Yeah.
gonna audition for the cello, but then instead, you had to perform Wonderwall by Oasis. So what was that experience like?
It was
If you
so,
can recall.
like, jarring. I truly didn't expect it. Like, I walked into the rock band audition thinking, yeah, I was gonna go audition for a rock cello position, but obviously when you join a rock band, they do not need you to play rock cello at the age of 10 either. So,
It'd be cool
my
though.
music I was a cool idea. It was very brave for me to even think of
Yeah.
doing that. But my music teacher, he was like, "Well, we don't need that, but we do need a singer. Would you be interested in auditioning for that?" And I had been singing Wonderwall at home with my dad while he played it on the guitar, and I just ended up really loving it. And I just kept doing it. So I found a love for it when I was 10, and I'm really grateful I've never looked back.
That's awesome. Did you know at all that you had, like, a singing voice? Or it was until that moment?
I think it wasn't until that moment. I had definitely never thought of myself as a singer, and I think when you're 10, it feels like you're so late to something when you, like, decide to start
Mm.
singing at that point, and I think with singing
Feels like that, yeah.
specifically, yeah, it just felt like everyone who had decided they were a singer was already singing at that point, so I felt like I was really
Mhm.
late to it, but, no, I didn't think about myself as one until maybe, like, I was a teenager. Mhm.
Until you were a teenager, like, you started to see, like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, like, I feel like I got the skills for this."
I had done my time. I definitely had proved to
Yeah.
myself at that point, yeah.
And it's really funny that you mentioned that you felt like you were late when you were 10 to get
I
into
know.
singing. Can you just imagine, like, how you would be, like, in your 20s, like, how exponential that would be
It's
just in, like,
so
in life.
crazy. It's truly, you're never too late for anything. It's all about perspective. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So, like, okay, so, like, when I first saw your name, I was like, at first, how do I pronounce this name? And then I looked it up, and I was like, okay, see, it seems very plain and simple to do it, to pronounce it, but also very unique name. How did you
Mhm.
come up with MXM Tune?
Honestly, it was my dad who came up with it, and he would never let me
Oh.
forget that fact. I was 11 and I was trying to start posting my cartoons online, and I needed an Instagram
Mhm.
handle. And so he was like, "Well, we're trying to protect your identity. We're trying to not let people know what your last name is, and you have to be safe online. So let's just choose something that's like, your initials and then Toon at the end, so it's like Maya's Cartoons without it being too obvious, and
Mhm.
MXMTOON was born, and I just used it for everything because it was the only username that I had at that point in my life, and so, it turned into a music project totally on
That's
accident, yeah.
awesome. And then now, I mean, like, I'm sure you had to use it in every single social platform now because it's a very unique name, and I'm sure it would have been available if you would to search the availability of that.
Totally, it was perfect. I got all of my brand synergy done and dusted when I was 11,
I
so it
know.
was totally fine.
You didn't have to coax someone into changing their name so that you can have the rights.
No, I didn't. It
Amazing.
was really easy. Yeah. Mhm.
Awesome. Well, so you grew up in Oakland, was it? And
Mhm.
now you're based in Nashville. So I'm curious, like, was the move tied to immersing yourself? Because there's a huge music scene in Nashville. So is that the reason why you moved there?
There's definitely a pull there in just terms of being around creative energy and being around really talented musicians. It made sense to be in a city that was so proximate to that. And I wrote and,
Mm,
created my last album there. I've done a couple of albums now in Nashville. And so it's been a place where I've really grown to creatively enjoy the energy. But it also just like felt like a nice challenge. I've lived in Oakland, I've lived in New York, and it was time to do something
mm.
new and feel out a different city for the first time. So I'm excited for that chapter. I'm really curious how I'll change, how my music will change, and who knows? Yeah. Mhm.
Was this just like a recent move to Nashville?
This was 4 weeks ago. You were talking to me
Oh my god.
fresh off of a move. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So 4 weeks into Nashville, like, how are you liking it so far as compared to living in Oakland and, as you said, living in, New York?
It's definitely super different. It's so quiet. There are not sirens outside of my apartment every single second, which is
God.
something I'm very happy about. But it is really
Yeah.
different. I think it's a change of energy. In New York, you're like on all the time, and Oakland is
Mhm.
also a big city, and Nashville is considerably smaller compared to both of those places. So it's a welcomed change, but it's definitely takes a lot of transitional energy to kind of understand the differences and be okay with them. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. And, so now, like, we're diving into your, music, and you
Hmm.
started releasing music secretly, like, in your teens, and
Hmm.
so, I think it was around, like, 17, I think, since you were
Yeah.
17? Yeah, so what do you since then, like, what do you most enjoy about, like, your process in making mu first of all, what is your process like in making music, and what do you enjoy most about that one?
I think it's different project to project. I feel like what I've really grown to understand that enjoy is the collaborative element. I was so lucky to work
Right.
with a team of all women on my last record, and I think that really shifted my perspective of what collaboration could look like, of just like
Mhm.
showing up and feeling like you were kind of creating a sisterhood with the people that you were working with every single day. And that's
Yeah.
so special. So, but that was something that I learned very late because I started working very individually. I was doing, you know, music in my bedroom, hiding it from my
Mm.
parents, posting it secretly, and collaboration was never something that I thought about doing until much later. So I think that that's something I've really learned, but it did take me a second to figure out where that would come in for me.
Okay. And so you must yeah, you were working with an all-woman team for your latest album, and so what was the experience like, and also was that an intentional move for you to make it an all-women team?
It was definitely intentional. I think so many of the stories on the record are really intricately tied to my experiences of living, and especially as it comes to being a woman. And so
Yeah.
when I was making these songs, I think it felt really important to just work with people who understood what I was talking about and wanting to talk about in these songs. So that was an intentional move and one that I'm so glad that I made because I think that the songs really benefited from having a room full of people that could just innately understand the exact experiences that I was writing about. And it made me feel more comfortable to talk about them in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure,
Mhm.
like, I feel like it made you, like, a little feel safer, I feel like, because naturally, when you're around women too, same energy, same vibe, it's like, you just feel like you're more comfortable to be in that space. Maybe it
Totally. You're
helped you
just,
open
yeah.
up?
Oh, it
Yeah,
totally does. Like, I think you can
yeah.
walk into a room and be like, all right, let's just like talk about something we've all gone through. And that makes it so much easier than having to, like, I've worked with incredible guys, but sometimes they are just a little clueless and they don't know about certain experiences that I want to talk about. And they ask a lot of
True, yeah.
questions where I'm like, it's kind of tiring to explain yourself over and over. So it was nice not to have to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, building up your musical identity, who do you usually listen to, or who were like musical influences that helped you develop your sound?
So much I think of this record was definitely really inspired by a lot of the like indie songwriters that I grew up listening to when I was a teenager. I think, a huge one that a lot of people reference is probably Elliott Smith, who's like
Mm,
very famous for doing like the
yeah.
acoustic guitar and voice and writing very sad music. So feeling really inspired by that, but also thinking too back to those songs and thinking, why was I listening to so many men being kind of in that space and trying to think, okay,
Mm,
how can I make my own version of that sound? But about my experiences of like being a woman and being, a person of color and whatever it may be, and trying to recontextualize that genre of music for myself and seeing
right.
myself in it. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And so now like we get to hear more of you like in this latest album Liminal Space. And
Hmm.
so um again when I listened to it, it was just so like how you described it in the press release. It was almost like I was at first a little hesitant. Oh, is this going to be sad? Like I had questions. But then when I started listening to the music, it was just like it sounds very chill, like, it doesn't really attack you, like, it doesn't necessarily go for the jugular immediately and make you hurt, but because there are
Hmm.
some that are upbeat that it's just like, you can't tell if this is a sad song.
No, yeah. I think it's
Yeah,
fun. You have to
it
balance
is.
tone. I know. It's like if you're writing a lot of
Yeah.
sad stuff, you still have to make sure there's levity to it. And I feel
Mhm.
really grateful that I can do that. Like I can make songs that are kind of
Yeah.
punching you in the gut, but also songs like I'm still here for a fun time. I don't want to just cry the whole time. So it felt like nice
True.
to do both. Yeah.
Let's go through a roller coaster of emotion, like, throughout the album.
Totally. Yeah.
I love that. And then so, for the monsters who are then curious about liminal space, like, could you describe then, like, the resounding theme of the 12 tracks that you have in this album?
I think it's about, like, having conversations with yourself that might be hard, whether it's, like, wanting to break up with a partner that you aren't really sure if you wanna be with, or having a tough
Mhm.
conversation with your parents. Like, I think a lot of these songs are just about difficult to have conversations that I was struggling to have in my life and trying to figure out a way to
Mm.
put them into songs so hopefully other people can feel, encouraged to have those and hold those conversations with people in their life, too. Yeah. Mhm.
I love that, and it's like the
Mhm.
harder the conversations, like, the that you need to have, then, like, the closer the bond of the relationship could potentially be instead of just, like, skirting around that, right?
Mhm.
So,
Totally,
yeah,
yeah.
it's a beautiful message, and, in, the PR, it was also there was also a quote from you that said that, "Suspended in the unknown, I wrote these songs." So,
Mhm.
what were some of those thoughts or questions, and I'm sure you've mentioned some of them already, that you were struggling with during that time, and this was around, like, a after you released your 2nd album, working into your 3rd one?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about it earlier of just moving has been a really big question on my mind. I
Mm,
lived in New York for 4.5 years, and one of the big pieces of last year for me was learning that my mom had a cancer diagnosis, and there was a lot of questions that
ooh,
surrounded what do we do now? And how do I show up for my
mm,
mom? And how do I show up for my family? But also, how
yeah,
do I live life for myself and figure out how to balance, the familial obligations with also the personal dreams? And I think that is a really big part of this album is discussing, how much I love my family, but also the
mhm.
intricacies of that relationship sometimes of just being, you know, living for other people and also living for yourself.
And that's sometimes a hard balance that people find themselves in because it's
Mhm.
like for one thing, it's like, yes, you feel like overwhelmed or like distraught that this family member is going through something.
Mhm.
And then you also have like another part, which is your life that you're living. And then like there's sometimes that in between, it's like I want to feel happy about something that's happening in my life, but then you feel guilty for being happy.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, so yeah, it's a delicate balance for sure.
Totally.
And hopefully, yeah, hopefully the people who listen to monsters who listen to your album like can get some relief or comfort
Mm.
also knowing that it's just part of life really like what we have to go through and figuring it all out.
It really is. I think it would have happened regardless. It just happens to be happening to me in my 20s. So I'm trying to make a record about it. Yeah.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
would be helping a lot of people, I'm sure, while
I
they're
hope so.
listening to it, right?
Yeah.
So of course, my show is called The Deep Dish, and so I do have a semi deep question for you today. So, in light of what we've talked about,
Mhm,
when you feel like you're overwhelmed, like with these questions, with these thoughts, you
mhm,
might want to dissociate or just be a little like you just want to be a gremlin in your own place, like you don't want to do anything and deal with those things. How do
mhm.
you get yourself grounded?
Oh, that's a tough question because I think I'm still figuring out the answer. Like, I struggle so much with
Mm,
like mental illness and trying to figure out how to balance my life and keep myself
sure.
healthy mentally and physically amongst everything else.
Mhm.
I think the biggest thing for me is just to like be with people you love and, turn off the screen, go and actually physically do something with people in your community and people around you.
Yeah,
And I know like in my saddest moments, I've been so lucky to be picked up by my friends and my family and like held
sure.
when I wasn't feeling so good about myself. But yeah, just be patient and be kind and understand that like everyone has a willingness to help you in a way that I think can be hard to understand and hard to believe sometimes, but you
Mhm.
have to trust that the people that love you and want to be there for you even when you're not doing so well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And
Mhm.
then sometimes it's really hard for us to remind ourselves that there are people who are ready to receive you in whatever state you're in,
Yeah.
and to just be there for you, right?
It's a tough
So
thing. You want to give everyone your
yeah,
best, but you can't always do that. Yeah.
facts right
Yeah.
there. Yeah. And okay, so for this album, like Monsters, do check it out, Liminal Space. But fun fact, in case you guys didn't know, apart from making music, apparently Maya has also done some side quests in her life. She even has a podcast, and I'm curious about this one. So, what's this podcast called? What do you usually talk about on this podcast too?
Oh my gosh, so I've been retired from the pod space for a good minute now because the podcast that
Okay.
I did was called 365 Days with MXMTOON, and it was a daily history podcast for
Whoa.
a year. And
Oh
that
my,
you can understand why I'm not doing that every single
I get
day
it. I get
anymore,
it.
but it was really fun. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about history. I learned a lot about my limits as a podcaster, and
Mhm.
I think it was a really great learning experience. And yeah, I love history. I love getting to teach people about various moments of it, and I feel really lucky that I got to do it through that. But who knows? Maybe I'll pick it up again, but that's definitely
Yeah.
not something I'm gonna do anytime
Yeah.
soon. Yeah. Mhm.
So that was 365 days of like one episode each day. How long
Yes.
were these
They were
episodes?
thankfully like they were only like 10 minutes or so every single day, but
That's a
you
lot
gotta do
actually.
research with the team. You gotta script it, you gotta
Right.
record it, you gotta edit it. It was a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
What was the coolest episode, I guess, that you recorded, or like the coolest point in history that you were able to talk about?
Ooh, that's a tough one because I there was 365 different days that I was
Fair
talking about,
enough.
so I can't even off the top of my head really remember. I loved any time that I got to do an episode that talked about like music artists that I loved. We did history facts of that
Okay.
day. We did music facts of that
Nice.
day. And I loved it whenever like the Glee cast got to appear on like some sort of music fact of the day because I'm obsessed with that show and got to talk about it. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. All right, and not just a pod, but she is now retired, but maybe she'll pick up soon later on. You also have authored a graphic novel. Well, I mean, because yes,
Mhm.
you did do comics, and so
Yeah.
you were able to author one now, a graphic novel. So what was that about?
We've done like one for the masquerade. We got to work with this incredible visual artist, Ellie Black, who did some illustrations for each of those songs. And it was so cool. Like I think visual arts have obviously been like a really big part of each of my story as a musician and everything. And it's been fun in each project in some way to kind of like create a comic for each song and then, in turn create a graphic novel
Awesome.
based off of it that kind of has a longer narrative to it. So, I was really lucky I got to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're able to actually spend time to do other things, or like just be curious to do other things aside
Totally.
from making music. And so So next year in Feb, you have a 27 date headlining North American tour. 27. I'm guessing, is this all in 1 month? No, I'm just kidding.
It
Probably.
is thankfully not. I would
Okay.
not survive that. Yeah.
I was like, that's the whole month of Feb if you think
Can't
about
do
it.
it. Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
almost like your 365
yeah,
podcast.
literally 27 days in February with MXMTOON. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right? But I mean, no one would be complaining if you're gonna be performing songs. So, how are you actually preparing for this 27 date North American tour?
I'm really lucky. It's split up, so hopefully I will survive the whole run of shows. But I'm
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
excited. I'm gonna be rehearsing with my band probably at the beginning of next year and just getting prepared for the whole entire thing. But I'm just looking forward to it. I made the record with so much of my excitement being towards how the songs would sound in a live environment. And so I'm really looking forward to being able to do the show and hear how the songs go.
Awesome. And well, we are down to like the last few questions, but
Hmm.
you have a lot of fans over here. You know, one of your top streaming countries is in the Philippines. And
Yep.
so when are we going to be able to catch you live here?
I know, I'm sorry. I really wish I could come. Like, I promise it is not from lack of trying. I would love for it
Mhm.
to work out. But yeah, I'm hoping that it's sooner rather than later. I would definitely love to be able to come to the Philippines because I know that everyone at that show is going to out sing me, and I would love to be able to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be I feel like that would be so memorable for you if like
Oh,
everyone's just
for
start
sure.
harmonizing to
Oh my gosh,
your
I can't
music.
believe it. I wish. Yeah.
That would be awesome. But
Mhm.
yeah, hopefully next year receive some good news that you're able to come here. But in any case, Maya, aka MXMTOON, any message that you want to send out to your Filipino fans? Go ahead.
Just a thank you. Like, I am so blown away every single time I get to learn that there are people across the world that listen to my music and that, like, music is so universal. It really doesn't matter where you are, but it can apply to you wherever you may be. In the Philippines, it's been a constant supporter of my music and my story, and I just feel so grateful. And I really hope that I get to come to the Philippines one day, just so I can see everyone in person and play shows and get to sing with you all. So I'm hoping for that.
Yeah, and then you come into the booth here and then like perform live a
Yes.
couple of your songs, right?
Yes, absolutely. I
That would
have to
be
do it for the monsters, yeah.
yeah. Exactly. Well, thank you very much, Maya, aka MXMToon, for joining me this morning here on the Deep Dish. And I hope you have a great rest of your evening. And
Awesome.
yeah, have a good snack or meal or whatever, so that you can take a quick break.
Perfect. Thank you so much. No, this has been a pleasure. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's it for all you monsters who are listening. We'll go back to more music in just a bit. For now, keep it locked only here on the Monster.